tuning in today. Today we are going to talk about the Kiwi Ears Airoso. This has been a really well-received IEM. I've been enjoying it. I've got some thoughts on it, and I'll do a single comparison with another IEM today. Then we'll actually do some audio examples, do some listening, look at some spectrum analyzers, and kind of point out what frequencies, at least that I think, stand out in a good way and a bad way. So first things first, let's talk about the looks. I think they look good. They're lightweight, resin builds, aluminum, like front plate, something like that. As far as the fit goes, they didn't fit me great. And I think I had some bias against them initially, but after trying out some different tips, using some of these Dunu SNSs, the fit and seal was much better. So definitely try out some different tips if the stock ones don't work. They're not bad by any means. I think it's like 2 or 3 pairs. But if you're not getting the fit you want, you definitely need to prioritize that. And I say that goes for any IEM, right? Sometimes you can hate something and maybe it just doesn't fit your ear well. So that's that. This cable, people are talking about how cheap this cable is. I kind of like it. I mean, for me, these feel like a mobile IEM, right? The shells are incredibly lightweight. They're pretty robust. They're not going to break. And the cable is lightweight and pretty robust. So yeah, having the same thing for all their offerings maybe isn't ideal, or many of their offerings, but outside of that, like I like the feel and the weight. They feel like a really nice on-the-go IEM. Let's talk about some sound, and of course we'll do the analysis a little later. Kind of like a U or W-shaped sound with some additional treble sparkle. Yeah, they sound good. Significantly better once I had these new tips in. Really kind of warm sound, so I think they could be quite nice for electronic music. If you really want to not only emphasize the sub bass, but get some additional nice mid bass to kind of like keep it resonant and keep those bass lines going as the rest of the song is evolving. So I think it's good for that. It's also good for just warm, bass-heavy kind of indie music, acoustic music, rock music, and we'll show that in some of the examples. The bass just sticks with you. It resonates, it holds on. That mid-bass push really helps with that, so that is quite nice. On the other end, it's not as detailed as some things, and sometimes that treble extension, although adding detail, can feel a little strange, right? You're hearing like a warm bass, and then what's coming through is like finger picking from a guitar somewhere else, and sometimes it doesn't feel unnatural, but it's just doesn't always feel appropriate for what I'm listening to. So yeah, in general, I like them. I don't know if they're worth the $130 price tag, and I think that's kind of the elephant in the room. I got these on sale at Amazon for maybe close to half that near release. And I think this maybe brings up a point about IEM pricing. I understand intro pricing, but just to knock something off like nearly half, then bring it back up to retail, it feels like, and all IEM companies seem to do that. There's so much variation. It maybe is a little hint at, how much money can be left on the table. So just an interesting little point. 130, I'm not sure, but they do sound great. And again, this is it's a hybrid. I think it's 4BA, 1DD. And I like these, but it's kind of, you're gonna want the signature, right? So for comparison today, scoot these a little bit. And let's bring in another set. These are the KZ Zenith, and sorry, this is a little bit of a mess here. But so the Zenith, single DD set with some tuning switches on the back there, which are useful. So in this particular setup, to kind of match the Airoso's frequency response, they're actually similar in some ways. I upped the switches, so I think we're at full strength ahead, which gives it a big bass boost, a general full spectrum frequency boost, and then a little treble boost too. And I think if you actually look at these two graphed, they're not so dissimilar like that. So timbre feels less natural than the Airoso, and I'm comparing these two despite the different driver configuration because I got them kind of around the same price, right? So if we think about the Airoso discounted, it's a pretty good set, right? You can use it on the go. The accessories are decent enough. And versus the Zenith, if they're similar, I would pick the Airoso. It just feels more natural. Sometimes the top end of these can feel a little synthetic, and I like these still. If you want a little more detail, despite that maybe not being represented on the graphs, the Zenith actually can provide that, and vocal separation feels a little better. Although instrumental separation is pretty good on the Airoso too. So the choice is yours. I don't think 130, I don't think I would suggest that for 130. Get it on sale. Hopefully there's sales again, you know, with all the crazy tariff stuff. And of course, that's a big part of pricing too. And I'm not saying anything wrong with the pricing, just the idea that we can go half off, back to full, etc. And like so many companies do this, and intro pricing is totally valid, but some consistency would be nice, right? Let's go ahead and look at the frequency responses on the computer, do some spectrum analysis, and then we'll give our final thoughts. This first track is from a producer called DJ Koze. This one's featuring Marley Waters. The track is called Brush Cutter. We're gonna start in at around second 50. So if you'd like to do this yourself, if you wanna know what I'm hearing, go ahead and start there, and let's go ahead and kick it off. So yeah, immediately this bass tone over here, it's quite nice. It's nice and round. The decay is quite long. Yeah, so I love how the sub bass kind of sounds, this area between like 20 and 50 hertz. There's a lot of high-end energy, really high up. I think this is some of that bump we see in the Airoso. These frequencies are more like the ear candy section. It's going to be little bits of hats, some of the sparkle from the synths. So it's kind of interesting. It could sound strange to some people. I kind of like it. It's unique. Yeah, and again, this bass really hits hard. The decay is long, but the actual attack is pretty quick too. So you get a nice snap and then it sticks around for a while. Now, these areas where we're seeing this kind of black overlay in the frequency graph, and we're going to see it all over the spectrum, that's basically saying there's multiple instrument sources, right? So this is where instrument separation would really come into handy. And it gets a little muddy here with all this stuff taking up this kind of like 500 to 1K area, right? So something to think about just in terms of instrument separation. But overall, having this really unique bass is really nice, as well as this little sparkle up here in the 10K region. Once more, this is just a simple spectrum graph, but I'm telling you what I'm hearing as we listen to this. All right, let's check out another song, something a little more acoustic oriented. Let's go ahead and listen to another track now. This time we're gonna do Let the Light In by Lana Del Rey featuring Father John Misty. Let's kick it off at 2 minutes and 7 seconds for a later chorus. A lot going on here, let's talk about it. Gonna play it now. So again, that mid bass area, quite nice. The snare, which maybe we're hearing around this area, it's getting eaten up a little bit by the longer decay on the bass, so it doesn't quite hit that much. In this mix though, it should be sitting in the back. And the vocals just sound really sweet together with both of them singing in harmony. And yeah, we're still getting some of that energy up here, which I think in a song like this is nice, kind of warm, low end and mid, that little bit of that high tingle. It sounds pretty cohesive, but again, quite unique. It's not the most natural. The separation again over here isn't maybe ideal, but for a song like this, you know, you get that warm hug effect with the little dynamics in the high end that make it a little more exciting. So what do we think about the Airoso? Well, on certain songs, it really does shine nicely. It's cohesive. It has that W U-shaped sound signature that's, yeah, it provides a lot of warmth. And then you get that little bit of extra high-end push that can bring out some details that actually, like, oftentimes works pretty well. Versus the KZ Zenith, I think it's a better set. On the Zenith, I do like the tuning switches, and there's some good micro detail despite often grafting lower on the treble side. For 130 bucks, I think there's probably some better options for you out there, so I would wait for a sale. Not too much to complain about here, just know it's kind of a vibe set, and if you want its particular vibe, and I think you can get into it even if it's not your normal sound signature, you know, that's what you'll get, and it's great on some songs, okay on others. That's my review. Thanks for checking it out. Catch you next time.